Hey everyone, apologies on the delay for the live stream. We will begin the event right at around 5 p.m. Eastern. Please stick around for another 10 minutes and we'll get started shortly. Thank you.
There's no one else who loves me like you used to. Sometimes we're not ourselves. There's no one I can turn to. And I know all the feelings that we shared are in the past. And I know your relationships are never meant to last. And I'll take some time, but I'll be alright. We're moving on. We're moving on. I know times are tough, but I've had enough.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're about to get started with the panel, so please find your way into the main room and we'll get started shortly. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's event. Please find your way into the main room for the panel as we are about to get started. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's panel. If you can please make your way into the main event space, we are about to get started. So please head on in, grab a seat, and get ready.
It's hard to tell how loud it is. Toot, 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 toot. Toot. Yep. Toot, toot. Ladies and gentlemen, the event is about to begin. Please find your seats. The event is...
Hi, everyone. Oh, it's louder than I thought it was going to be. Okay. Hey, thank you all for being here. I'm Vivian Lewitt. I'm our global head of artists at Google and YouTube. And we're here to talk about trends in Web3 and how that's impacting entertainment, creators, music, sports, the entire ecosystem. And with that, I'm going to bring out our panelists. We brought together a group of thought leaders, founders, creators, athletes themselves to talk to us today. Come on out. Grab a seat. Thank you, guys. All right, so before we get started, can you each, starting with you, Spencer, just give a quick intro and a little bit on how you got into Web3?
Spencer Dinwiddie, currently play for the Dallas Mavericks. When I got into Web3, it was, 2018, and I actually was down the road playing for the Brooklyn Nets at the time. Much like everybody else, I wanted to make some money. No, I mean,
I would like to be you to do that, but
No, I'm gonna be real about it. You know, I took probably Vegas gambling money by a lot of people's thought process, put into Bitcoin, rode the rise and the fall, and that sparked an interest and started me on my Web3 educational process.
Shaikh, got into crypto because I also wanted to make money. Co-founder and CEO of Aptos. We're a layer 1 blockchain that's going to be coming to market soon. Happy to dive into that as the panel progresses. I got into crypto in 2015 when my consulting firm BCG asked me to take a deep dive into crypto and understand what it meant. And the challenges that I think the technology was facing then are sort of some of the challenges that we're excited about solving for today. But the one thing that really stuck out with me was sovereignty and the freedom of money to move without censorship. And that really, really resonated with me. And I went deep down the rabbit hole, both diving into technology and figuring out what self-sovereign money could look like. So,
great, thank you.
Nice.
Justin.
And 3 of us were just at a dinner in LA recently, so it makes sense. I'm Justin Blau, also DJ Blau. Some people say 3 Lau, that's okay. I'm not gonna get mad about it. I did put a 3 in my name when I was in college, but I've been involved in the crypto world since 2014. The story's quite fun. I was playing on spring break in Mexico, opening up for a good friend of mine, Avicii, and I met Tyler and Cameron Winklevoss down there, who were explaining all the benefits of frictionless value transfer and being able to send value anywhere in the world whenever you want to. So I bought some Bitcoin in 2014 and haven't looked back since. Now I have a company called Royal that aims to enable anyone to invest in music as an asset class, and we've built that on crypto rails.
Great. My name is Dillon Rosenblatt. I'm CEO and co-founder at Autograph. My first time getting into crypto was, I think, a traditional story that many of us have faced. I started just investing through a Coinbase in 2017. Was always fascinated by it as an asset class. But later in 2019, 2020, when NFTs started to get more and more popular, I came from being a traditional founder in the Web2 world, saw an NFT and the potential of digital ownership, and I never really looked back. Quit my job, quit the startup that I was working on, and dove in full speed. And it's amazing to be here just about a year later.
Fantastic. Thank you. Okay, we'll liven up to start with a quick lightning round, and then we'll dive in. So, first question. Do you actually own an NFT?
I do. I do. I own many. Yeah. No ape. I actually missed out on that. I was about to click on an ape and invested in a rug pull on accident instead. So that was my entry into the world. Still feeling that
Which
one.
rug?
It was the pickle one.
Oh, God. The pickle one.
It's a longer story, but yes, I do. I own a doodle, an autograph. I own some autograph NFTs as well.
Amazing. Okay. Favorite music artist? Anyone? Roll it out.
Blau, you're kidding.
Favorite basketball player?
Spencer.
Oh, me? Me.
Okay. Pineapples on pizza, yes or no?
I'm from Brooklyn, so there's no pineapple allowed on pizza. That's not.
I'm so with you. Fruit just should not be on regular food. In general.
Fruit should not be on regular food.
Well, I just don't know why
that's
you
a
mix
grand
like
statement.
cranberries and greens.
That was pretty
you
broad.
know?
That's a person who loves pizza. Pizza is regular food.
Okay, let's get started then. So the role of Web3 in society has already had great impact. I started my career as a music attorney representing artists many, many years ago, and I can tell you what did not exist then. But I won't, because I'll age myself significantly. But to where we're sitting today is a remarkable difference from where we were back then. And this is the beginning of a new format change. Blau, Justin, specifically for music, but all formats in ways that creators can connect with their fans. So I guess my first question for you guys is like, what to you is the use case? What's the evolution of the use case, and what is the value proposition that you see as kind of most pivotal today?
You want to go just down the line? So like,
Sure.
all right, cool. So, I told you guys I want to make money, right? And then I dove into obviously an educational process, looking at smart contracts, et cetera, and trying to merge entertainment industry, at least my section of it and the way I understand it, with blockchain. So that led me to trying to securitize my contract, which the NBA sued me over. And long story, but the way you talked about frictionless payment and value transfer, I looked at blockchain as a way to basically make everything a chip on the table, right? Just to kind of open up all systems and have this unlocked liquidity in a lot of various forms. Now, our regulations have to catch up with that, but I viewed my contract as such, right? Like, why not have the fans?
Bro, you were ahead of your time. I mean, every one of us talked about it. I mean, we all thought it was brilliant. So
thank you, man. No, I appreciate it. So I tried to do that. I ended up doing a small version of it, but bottom line, the ethos behind it was like, why can't my fans invest in this? Why can't they share in the journey? I mean, you see ISAs, all types of things in various industries. And so we got to my app, Galaxy, kind of does the utility version of a lot of that in terms of social tokens and interactions. Like at the end of the day, this entire process comes down to community, right? Like the whole concept of it takes a village to raise a child. Like we all are kind of only as powerful as our community. And if you guys say it's valuable, then it is. Just like you guys, buy tickets and watch the Mavericks beat the Nets and things like that. And so that's why I have, nice things because of you guys. And if you guys all woke up one day and said, basketball sucks and we're not going to watch it, then I wouldn't have a job much longer. So I just kind of look at life in general that way, and blockchain as a connecting fabric in terms of security and transparency within that.
I feel like I shouldn't have told you I'm from Brooklyn. That was personal. I'm going to take that personally. Look, I think I'm sitting between two use cases, right? And I think we talked about a lot. There are many use cases out there, but I think thematically, if you take a step back, what you're essentially trying to do, that you articulated, is bridge the gap with your community, and do it in a way where you don't have to go through very large platforms that end up taking a significant portion along the way. And that proximity is something everyone in this room would value, right? And that's bold of you to do that. That requires pretty significant changes by the league, by large music labels. And I don't think the large entities don't fully understand the disruptive power and nature of this proximity that can take place with this technology. The way we think about it from a use case perspective at Aptos is we want to build the infrastructure. We want to build plumbing that works, that can support all these different use cases. We want hundreds of thousands, we want millions of NFTs to be able to exist out there. So there can be broader participation, not just limited drops, right? Then you're still kind of leaving inclusivity to the few. And that infrastructure really needs to work well. So for us, the primary use case is to make sure that infrastructure works really well, it's reliable, and it continues to scale, because these guys are not going to stop. There's going to be more creators coming out there, and we want to continue to bring them to the market and allow them to connect with their communities, with their fans in ways that, again, the large platforms aren't always taking a big piece. So,
yeah, I think for me, what excited me about disintermediating any form of entertainment is this idea of taking something that's purely consumption, in the case of Spencer or myself, where you can watch Spencer play a game, you could buy a jersey, you can interact with him in those ways, but you can't own any piece of Spencer, even if you believe in him, right? You might believe in him and get a lot of value out of watching him play. The same is true of a musician, right? Where you can consume music, you can buy a license on iTunes, you can watch a YouTube video, you could pay for a piece of merch, or you can go to a show. But you can't really stake any ownership in a creator. And you might believe in that creator early on, and your experience actually gets worse if you're a fan of an artist early. As that artist explodes in popularity, tickets get more expensive, merch gets more expensive, and you, who might have told everybody about that musician or artist, didn't really get any value when realistically, right, the fans provide all the value in spreading popularity about a musician. So what fascinated me about Web3 is this idea of ownership, of community ownership. And I think that that's kind of where everyone is pushing boundaries and why we're all sitting up here. It's this idea of giving power to everyone to own something and to own it transparently. And I think that, public, immutable, transparent ledgers are really powerful, and lots of really smart people are building in this space now. So it's fun.
Yeah, I mean, the consistent themes between community and rewarding fandom is something that we definitely believe in at Autograph. I think that right now when I look at fandom, it's a generally disconnected experience. If I'm going to be a fan of a team, for example, I can buy a ticket, I can buy a jersey, I can attend a game, maybe follow on socials, but I think there's so much white space for both community interaction with each other and with the actual teams. And I think it gives an opportunity for that entity without a lot of middlemen to do more for their actual communities and audiences at scale. So in our next chapter of our business, we want to start to power more and more of that for both individuals, teams, and entities that have an audience that they can engage in a brand new way and really reward for the time they spend and the energy that they put into something they care about.
Yeah, that's great. There's so many things that you've all said that I want to touch on. I think I'll start with the use cases a little bit more specifically themselves. I, as you'd imagine, as the head of artists at Google and YouTube, I am super focused on our artist and fan connections and what that means. And in the music business, we went from single piece of content ownership to mass scale, as much as you can consume types of business models. Justin, with Royal, you're kind of the potential to reshape the playing field. Well, with all three of your businesses, there's a potential to reshape the playing field and reshape the format. How do you look at that for the future? What value does it deliver to the fan?
Yeah, I think people confuse, the necessity of the technology with the goal. And, you have people like Mo who are building the infrastructure and the piping to make all of our ideas possible. And realistically, you don't need to say the word or the phrase NFT or crypto to explain what we're really getting at here, which is the idea that someone should be able to invest in what they want to invest in, and that value should be able to accrue to those people. And so in music, at least specifically with Royal, what we do is we let fans own a piece of their favorite song. And as that song succeeds, they're actually entitled to cash flows as any rights holder would in that record. Now, some of those songs might not do well, but if one does, and you might have bet on Billie Eilish before her career exploded, what might that mean for you? And don't you deserve that value if you were there in the beginning spreading the word about that artist, right? And so that's kind of how we think about things at Royal. And what's interesting is, of course, you've got people up here that are thinking about this technology as it applies to different aspects of the creator economy, when realistically, ownership kind of applies to everything, right? And so it's really fun to see people like Mo build, faster, more efficient blockchains to support these ideas.
Yeah, there's something so powerful in what you're saying, and being someone who has been involved at the precipice of artists' careers, I can tell you the enormous sense of, for me, my passion for music, right? It's just pure goodness. Was the best part of what I do. I represented Britney Spears early in my career, Taylor Swift early in my career. And every artist that I've supported over time. Rosalia was an artist that I helped early on in her career. So when you get that kind of hit, and you watch something that you love flourish, whether it's a person as an artist or basketball player, or just the music itself, it's extremely rewarding.
And we envision a world where you have a portfolio of your favorite music, not just a playlist, right? I think that's where it's going.
Right. It's like the extreme version of fandom. Yeah. And how about with Galaxy? How does that play out for you?
So to start, everybody's kind of familiar with social media today. Obviously, the layer ones to a degree, like the MySpace, Twitter, Instagrams. Now you kind of have the layer twos, which focus on monetization, Cameo, OnlyFans, things of that nature. Right now, Galaxy as an app kind of sits, I would say, Web 2.5. It's built on Hedera Hashgraph, which is Web3 plumbing. Google, you guys are actually a council member for them. So you create a social token, you're able to kind of help monetize yourself, incentivize your community, have those interactions go back and forth. But the kind of next step and where we want to walk you to Web3 when we talk about unlocking liquidity is having those tokens be dynamically priced based on a variety of factors. And then you'll be able to trade, a Spencer for 3 Lao, for any of you in the room, you know what I mean? And then, as that goes even crazier into the future, and this is just me talking, this has a little bit less to do with Galaxy, but hopefully there's an Oracle system out there where some of these social tokens could be traded and turned into, a loaf of bread at the grocery store because you have some 3 Lao tokens, you know what I mean? So big picture, it gets to that, right? Back to community, back to ownership, back to, rights and taking a journey along with somebody. So that's kind of the overall ethos.
And Dillon,
Yeah.
with Autograph,
Yeah. I mean,
you're also super focused on what that connectivity is and what kind of access the fan is getting.
For us, I mean, I think that the access and experience portion is where we really want to lean in and create our mark. I think that if you look at right now, the way that, if you look at back historically, there are people have tried fan clubs for 20 years, and I would argue that the vast majority of them failed, no matter who was behind it, no matter how good the artist was, because the delta between the time that the actual icon or team or whatever is willing to commit and the community, the delta is too great for it to actually be overcome. So where I think Web3 and the collective can come in is to create a more continuous, community-driven fan experience overall. And that delta, I think, really can be bridged by a combination of community and engagement tools originally by Autograph and later on taken by others. So I think the place that we really net out is to fill that gap and create a brand new and unique NFT experience overall.
Yeah, the Pledge, I think, was a company. It was an early fan club, invest in artists type of platform, and they tried to do that. And yeah, you had to wait for the artist to record the album, and then you got a first signed copy and maybe access to merch and a VIP ticket. But it took months.
It takes,
to your point.
I mean, it takes a long time. It's just disconnected in general.
And to be realistic, the first thing that was said on this panel, Spencer, is the money is interesting. And to be realistic, when you give a fan upside economics in something, it does make it more interesting. And I think the reason why fan clubs have failed in the past is because it's like a subscription, it's consumption, it's not ownership. And when you kind of switch that and everybody gets to own things and grow together, the incentives are aligned. And that's the power of, Web3 economics.
Yeah, and just to piggyback that, which is in part why I was so frustrated with the NBA when everything was going down, because as long as incentives are aligned and you're not messing with the spirit of the game. So let's say anything that I do still is like a 51-49 split towards the upside, right? I have to be incentivized to make my threes and all that stuff. We're not shorting myself as a player. But if that were to happen, imagine watching a game where, the game-winning shot against Brooklyn, for example, didn't just, make all Dallas Mavericks fans happy and potentially crush the souls of Brooklyn Nets fans, but maybe Brooklyn Nets fans who invested in me 5 years ago because I was, on the team and they roll with me, they made $5,000 with the shots. So they're like, damn, we lost, but shit, I made 5,000. Life is good. You feel what I'm saying? So it was kind of that type of mentality and thinking about we're looking at sports gambling, we're looking at the world as itself kind of opening up, why can't value and trap liquidity at this moment do the same?
I just want to clear the air. I'm a Brooklyn Nets season ticket holder. I'm a big Spencer Dinwiddie fan, and I was disappointed when you left. So just for the record.
Thank you, boss. Thank you.
You need those Spencer tokens.
I need those Spencer tokens.
Spencer tokens,
I'm here for the money. As I said earlier, but I think just one point that I think is interesting for this group maybe is going back to what Dillon talked about is these experiences that Justin and Spencer are talking about, those sit in siloed platforms, right? If you sell sneakers today on a website, I'm a fan, I buy those sneakers. Now I want to go to a Brooklyn Nets game, I got to plug into a different platform. They don't know that I'm a super fan and own your sneakers. Why can't those two things speak to each other? And then why can't I take that same sort of token, and maybe you're dropping a podcast and talking about what's made you so special over the last 3 years and your training regimen. I'm interested in that. I want to be able to follow you on a podcasting platform. And those cross-platform experiences are so fragmented. I got to aggregate that myself, and I'm tired of it as a fan, right? So it's not reasonable to expect for large platforms to have their fans just go bouncing around. And I think folks are paying attention to that. Creators are certainly paying attention to that. You're probably putting the same tweet out and then posting it on TikTok. Then you go to Instagram, you post the same thing, and right, like everyone is fighting for that. And it just that those economics are being kind of commoditized, and it's becoming a little bit of a race to the bottom, and I don't think they can last for a long time. And this is why having underlying infrastructure that speaks across different platforms is going to be very valuable to continue to empower, obviously, you guys to create, but more importantly, it's really the community, right? The community needs that level of access. So I would love to be part of that Spencer token community. I'm just saying.
Hey man, I think you all just witnessed a business deal.
Okay, I'm going to stay on that point with you, Mo, because I want to hear from you about a little bit more about Aptos. And you talk about infrastructure for these types of experiences. You just raised, for anyone in the room who doesn't know it, which is probably not many of you, Mo just raised a whopping $200 million in unicorn investor status. And what is it about Aptos? You're challenging the status quo of the first layer in blockchain right now. What's going to be different, and how are you going to scale?
Sure. I mean, it's the credit actually goes to raising money is not a Mo thing; it's a team thing, and we're an amazing team. First of all, some of us are here, but we've been building this thing for a very long time inside of our former employer, Meta, and that luxury that we had was we were able to see what was being built over the last 6-7 years. Where we saw infrastructure that worked, it ran into issues, it then evolved, it ran into other issues, and it's continuing to evolve. And we paid attention to that. We paid very serious focus on, understanding this technology has to continue to evolve with the use cases. So the most important thing for us is future-proofing this technology, making it continuously scalable, and that's been one of our key focuses. That's not the only one. We've been running a bunch of test nets that went live several months ago where we realized, well, let's see how much of the community is actually interested in participating in our network because we want a blockchain to remain decentralized. There's now 20,000 nodes that are operational across the world, over 50 countries. And there's no blockchain that I think can make that level of claim. But the reason that exists is because we've lowered the barrier to entry for anyone to participate from a hardware perspective, right? You could spin up a node on your laptop if you really wanted to, which is very, very powerful. And again, that goes to the hard work of our team. So it's infrastructure that's, again, scalable. It's, in a way, doesn't compromise decentralization. And it's extremely reliable, right? So if Dillon wanted to drop a million NFTs today, that'd be pretty hard to do on a lot of the existing infrastructure. And we got Max actually sitting right here, front row, who we were talking about this problem a couple of weeks ago on a Friday afternoon. We have a blog post that we talked about it, where he just said, you know what, I'm going to mint a million NFTs over the weekend just for the kicks of it. Do you know how hard? Like,
it's very hard to do that.
That's very hard to do.
Extremely difficult.
Yeah, there's 100,000.
I assume you were able to do it.
Yeah, and it cost a fraction of what it costs on other networks, right? So again, if Spencer has 1 million fans right now, he wouldn't be able to reach them in all the different across the world. So we want to continue to iterate and advance this network. We want to make sure it remains true to decentralization, and we want to do it in a way that again is safe and reliable for the masses. So those are the three sort of differentiating factors for our L1, and it'll be going live later this year. So excited for anyone who's interested in building to join us in that journey.
That's fantastic, because I think the barrier to entry is what needs to shift. How do you mentioned larger companies? You talk about Web2, Web3. I hear a lot of commentary about current operating businesses on the blockchain that have a front door that looks like Web2. How do the two worlds play together? How do companies like Meta and Google and YouTube, best work with your technologies to help scale? To how do we play?
Go ahead. You go for it.
Yeah, you can start.
Oh, no.
We can go down the line on
That's
that.
a big question.
Yeah, no, it was a great question. You obviously talked about Google, and like I said, they sit on the council with Hedera. Hedera has some great technical capacity in terms of being like A, Byzantine fault tolerant, can reach 100% finality and things of that nature. But one of the things that we noticed is that barrier to entry from a UX UI perspective, right, was kind of trash. Like, nobody wanted to do like the 12 normal people. Let me tell you about it. Normal people don't want to do like the 12 password phrases and all the extra stuff, and writing down your codes on a piece of paper, putting it in a safe, throwing the safe in the ocean, making sure nobody can. They don't want to do that, right? Like, they want to point and shoot like Instagram, right? So I think that's why there was such a drive to give a lot of this Web3 tooling that's being built right now, kind of a Web 2 facelift. So I think that's really all it came down to, the user accessibility.
I think that's excellent, right? Like, the user experience has been abysmal, and what are there? Barely 100 million users for Coinbase, which is the easiest thing to use. And those people aren't writing directly to the blockchain, right? They're just going in, buying some tokens, and maybe holding, or I don't know, speculating, whatever. I do that. But I think the other point is, for large companies to really enter this space, they have to be able to work together. There has to be some standards that need to be set, right? And this is where we think that dialogue with Web 2 players is really valuable. We also think that, as an L1 that's coming to market today, we're engaged actively with the existing Web3 community. We're working with projects that have been out there in the space for quite some time. There are very interesting use cases across different industries, whether it's decentralized mechanisms for processing a video stream, projects like LivePair that I think have done amazing stuff. Folks like obviously Autograph that are trying to take, create that sort of fandom, but be able to do it across different platforms. To standardize those things, you need coordination. You don't need a consortium or an association, but you do need some level of coordination, and it requires putting a little bit of your business rhetoric to the side to figure that out, and then sort of solve for these things for the next 5 to 10 years, right? So.
Yep.
Do you want to go ahead?
And for us, the promise of Autograph is to bring the next 99% of people into Web3, which is very aligned with Mo's mission and a lot of the missions that's on the stage. And for us to do that, I think having a Web 2 front door is actually incredibly helpful for the consumer. Think about design teams. They work all day long to make things as simple as possible for the consumer. So if we can abstract away that complexity and really focus on the power of the technology, I think that's an incredibly positive thing for us to do. When we and I launched this business, the first thing I said that was a non-negotiable is we have to be able to take credit card payments. Of course, things are transacting in crypto now, but we want credit cards and crypto to be a part of the ecosystem because it's such a difficult hurdle. And even today, some of the decline rates are in the 60-70%. So we're working hard internally to find the perfect solution to make it really accessible. And for the larger companies, I don't see any reason for them to make things more complex than they need to be. But I do think that when you think about the promise of Web3 and reopening the internet, returning power to the consumer, you can still capture that value and give that control back while making things simple. Yes, at the start, somebody has to own it, but decentralization, in my opinion, is progressive. It's a progression. It's not going to be on day one. You can slowly decentralize different pieces of your business and return power back to the community. A network participant can come on and build something that a Web 2 company originally owned, but it's going to take some time. So I do think while people are still skeptical of crypto, the more companies that can make it safe and accessible are actually going to benefit Web3 over the long term. And that's definitely something we're focused on as we design our solutions and products.
Yeah, and that makes a ton of sense. And then there's the audience bit also, right? Which I many years ago, again, I'm just going to say this, artists wanted to have their own websites, right? And remember?
It's funny now to think about it. Right? How many people are really going to their favorite musician's website versus being on YouTube or Instagram or any of Spotify, whatever it might be, right?
Right.
But that was a thing.
It was a thing, and there were businesses that were building them that were offering huge checks to be able to have the right to build the website and to help monetize the website and sell ads, and that that kind of morphed obviously into large platforms and huge audiences that kind of move algorithmically and are determining the popularity of content. How do you see platforms of that nature assisting to bring scale to the business and to bring audiences to have knowledge of the existence of the ability to buy an NFT?
So I would say that there's like one force that is maybe at odds between Web 2 and Web 3 companies / worlds. And I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. I think it's just something for everybody to overcome. And that's data. I think as a creator, right, I might have 1.5 billion streams on my music. I have no idea who those people are. I have no idea who they are. I may have sold, 500,000 tickets to shows in my life. I have no idea who those people are. But when I have 7,000 people that own my NFTs, I don't know who they are, but I have their wallet address and I can do other stuff with them if they choose to engage. And I think that power is really, really important. And so there will be this kind of structural battle between the fact that the Web 2 world does control audiences because, quote unquote, less steps to engage. Web 3, way more steps required to engage. And that's been a barrier to entry for a lot of people. And so, like Dillon, for us, my biggest, we share similar philosophies in this. Credit card payments should be easy. But when you buy an asset on Royal, we actually never custody the token for you. You get it in your own wallet. If you connect a wallet in advance, it goes to that wallet you connect. But if you don't even have a wallet, you don't have to know about it. We'll make one for you that we don't control. And that was really important in how we started building the product, is like, what is the bridge between less steps for the user and more decentralization on the back end? And we're all exploring that now. And I think so long as the Web 2 platforms with these large audiences are open to it, I think that it's not zero sum whatsoever. I think all ships will rise with this particular tide as more value is unlocked. And I think that's kind of what we all believe in up here.
Okay. I believe in that too, by the way. And I think there's going to be a coexistence of different ways that people consume.
Yeah,
absolutely.
As fans.
Yeah, I mean,
which is healthy for the ecosystem of creator.
Totally agree. And like maybe going back to one of the questions, and I think the point that Dillon made, right? Like you need a front end that is on par with what we have today, if not better, right? Like when you open up your phone, you have 8 wallets that you probably can go through, right? Like Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, on and on, right? And, a user is probably fatigued. I'm fatigued. And I don't know if I'm a super user, but I am fatigued, right? So we need a simple entry point that feels familiar to people, credit card processing, that last mile. Like if that drop off happens and, you probably won't, get your NFT, right? Like which is a bummer. You miss out on like the latest Spencer drop, right? Which is not ideal. And I think like this is where YouTube could come in, right? Like maybe create an interface where it becomes, you're following Spencer already, why not make it easy to buy his tokens if he chooses to drop them, right? And then from there, if you have standards aligned on the back end and I bought those tokens through YouTube, I can now take them with me to Instagram or to another Web3 platform if I want to, right? So I think those standards will help create that just like seamless and better Web2 experience, Web2 familiar experience over time. And ideally, when the transition happens, like people don't even know that it's Web3 in the background, right? Like no one needs to know. No one cares. So it just needs to be a better experience with better economics and just a better symbiotic relationship between the creators and the consumers. So.
And it's the principle of composability, right? The idea that you can bring whatever you own wherever you want to on the internet, and we haven't had that outside of what's happening in Web3. So inevitably, I do think all ships can rise with the tide here. And I think we all envision a world where, again, there are less steps, where I Shazam a song in a coffee shop and I can put $10 into it. Why can't that be possible? I think, and we all think about that in our own respective kind of niches. And so the Web2 platforms can kind of help us achieve that with the audiences that you bring to the table.
Yeah. Okay. So roadmap for the future is there. What are your biggest challenges? What are the blockers that keep you up at night? Let's start down on the other side with Dillon.
I get to start this time?
Yeah, you get to start this time.
No.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no.
Sorry, Dillon.
No, I'd say.
I was just trying to be fair. And
No, I was joking. No, I'd say what I think is definitely something that I touched on a bit earlier that we still want to solve is like the power of the blockchain to start and the power of an NFT and the relationship between that NFT holder and then us as Autograph or the icons that we work with in their communities. They're now connected in a brand new way. And when I think about the power of owning an NFT, to me it feels like two people in a city that they're not from walked in and supported the same sports team and would say hello to each other in a new way and have a new form of digital connection and relationship. So for us, I think the challenge is if I really believe, which I do, that's a core truth, that NFT ownership unites people differently. How do you build a suite of product solutions that are going to drive that level of engagement and bring people together in a brand new way while still respecting the need to decentralize and the need to really play into Web3 and give that back to the consumer? We're always going to give ownership. People actually own the Autograph NFTs, of course, but how can you take the steps to first build a product that is going to work for the next 99% of the population that wants to get closer to something they care about, but then progressively decentralize it to return control back to that consumer while respecting the brand of the actual icon? Because we work with some of the most valuable IP in the world, and they're very careful about their brands. They have teams solely focused on it. So how do you give that control and ownership and involvement and interaction to the community while still doing something that a Tom Brady, a Tiger Woods, Wayne Gretzky, whoever it may be, is going to be okay with today and over the long term? So I guess bridging that delta through a mix of centralization, then returning control is where we are today. But I'm really excited about what's coming.
I think my answer is pretty simple. I think it's technicalities and regulations. I think across the board, there's a lot of uncertainty in both, and lots of really, really smart people. Since I kind of got involved in the space 8 years ago, it's incredible to see. I've seen more people get interested in this technology in the past 2 years, and I think like COVID was 1,000% an accelerant. And that excites me a lot because having the most brilliant minds. I mean, being even able to sit here in a room with a bunch of Google employees and people who understand and love what's happening in the Web3 world. It's like, this is kind of what we've been waiting for a long time. So I'm definitely optimistic that a lot of people will be able to overcome these challenges that we face.
Yeah, I mean, so the systematic risk of regulation is definitely felt. I mean, all of us are probably feeling that pain. I think from a barrier to entry or a significant headwind that's maybe different, right? It's that level of coordination and that allergic reaction that a large entity or even a consumer may get, like, oh, I can own a piece of Spencer. Like, what does that mean? Like, we are battling systems that have been ingrained in us that have created economic models that are so disparate and tied to, party A or party B. And now the people that have been actually creating a lot of that value, which is honestly the community, right? Spencer would be nowhere without his fans, right?
I'd be eating beans and stuff.
Right, no, but I mean, me too.
Eating beans and throwing safes in the ocean.
There you go.
But no, like it's really the fans, and they themselves have forgotten that you can be owners and participants in Spencer in a way where you don't have to just buy a ticket and then you rip that ticket up after the game and it's gone. You can have a continued relationship with Justin after the concert, right? Like, these types of models are so new and we're just getting used to them. We're just getting introduced to them, and we're so used to these old systems that I think it's going to be extremely fascinating, and I think it's going to inspire an entire new generation of creators, right? Because the barriers to entries are going to continue to decrease. They're going to be more and more. There's going to be increased proximity where you can pay your creator directly, and it's going to spur an entire generation of new creators, right? The folks that grew up listening to your music or shooting hoops are now going to be able to be empowered and maybe follow drills or take your music and be inspired to create and connect with fans directly without going through large platforms. And that's an entire new way of living. And I think that Renaissance it's our own aversion and our own sort of ingrained systems that we've operated in that are the headwinds that we have to overcome. So. And we're all, I think, excited about that. Everyone in this room is. Everyone in New York for NFT NYC is excited about that new business model. So,
I mean, when we think about it, it's like you own the NFT and now you're a part of something. So if you could go from scratch, how would you reimagine that experience, right? And it's not to us as much about you own a piece of something. It's more about you've bought into this amazing program. And long term, right now, Autograph helps bridge the gap, but it should be on the actual icon or the team or whatever it may be to provide that continuous experience to those that make and support them. So I really love that.
Yeah, no, I mean, for me, it's piggybacking on what you guys said, coordination and regulation. When I was doing my contract, we had an option to go either Reg D or Reg A. Reg A would have ate me up in fees. It had costed possibly like $3 million to securitize a roughly $15 million cash contract, right? Which at that time doesn't make any sense, right? Like, why am I going to pay, 20% of the deal just in legal fees to be able to, get to my fan base? Reg D, obviously, far cheaper. It's a couple $100,000, but the only people that can participate in it are accredited investors. I did it as a use case, but overall as a repeatable model, wasn't going to be effective, right? So, and that's because I still had a really solid contract by NBA standards. If I was a minimum guy, it really wouldn't have made any sense. And then as we transferred into the social token landscape, it's always tricky to do the dance with regulators to make sure you're truly utility, nothing's a security, all such stuff. But like you said, it's an antiquated model, and I think that's where big players like YouTube, Google, et cetera, them pushing on regulators is a lot more powerful than Spencer pushing on regulators, right? Like, you guys can go in there, billionaires and whatnot, lawyers.
I don't know.
Been a lawyer for at least 15 years, right? Like, you know what I mean? Because she only about 35 now, so. Can go in there and lean on regulators and actually get some things accomplished. Whereas, I'm just like the old man shouting out the window, right? It doesn't really work as well.
What's so crazy is that these laws were written before the internet existed. Just want to throw that out there.
No, for sure.
Yeah, let's not go down that path, though.
Just a comment.
One thing I didn't hear from you guys when you're to talk about regulation, but there's also there's a part of me that's asking this question specifically because I've been at YouTube since 2011. Impersonators, some of the fraud, some of the scamming that's happening.
Fraud is bad.
How do you
right? Like,
is that
regulation
not a worry?
should stop fraud. I mean, that's its intent. Its intent is to protect and to mitigate negative externalities. And, that's where working with regulators is probably a great idea. And, between Web2 companies, Web3 companies, there's lots of policy teams. A lot of, obviously the three of us at least share an investor, A16Z, who has an incredible policy team. Some of the best lawyers in the world work there who are experts in this specific field. And that's what it takes to, play ball and to make sure consumers are protected, because I think everyone on this stage certainly doesn't want anybody to get hurt. And by the way, that's been happening a lot.
Yeah.
Right. So,
that was a very positive spin on things. I don't have that type of spin for this specific conversation, because I feel like the regulations, although kind of dolled up to say that they're protecting the mom and pop shops or the grandma from getting scammed, I think it has a lot more to do with just creating further wealth disparity. Like, if we're being real, I got termed an accredited investor at 20 years old as a college dropout because I can shoot a ball into an orange rim, right? Now, I think that I'm fairly intelligent, but that doesn't necessarily just make me an accredited investor because overnight they called my name on the draft board, right? That doesn't make much sense. And if we're also being real, there's a lot of, as we see with Terra, right? Everybody got rug pulled there, right? Like, scams happen at every level. Billionaires get scammed. People that ain't got no money get scammed. But if the only people getting the access to the sweet deals in the YouTubes back in, '05, before it was really popping, like I could get in YouTube, right now I have a chance to go from a millionaire to 6, 7, 8, 9 to a billionaire, right? Like, so I don't have the positive spin on a lot of these laws that they may take. And
on accreditation, bro, I'm with you, dude. Like, it's kind of crazy, right? Like, who's to say? Yeah, accreditation.
Overnight,
nuts.
I was an accredited investor because they called my name on a screen.
Yeah, just to kind of add to that, like, maybe in defense of our space, right? Like, every time I open up watch a live stream on a large platform, there's a commercial there, right? There's an ad, and sometimes that ad says, hey, this is how I made all this money in real estate. Come join my platform. And I maybe go down the rabbit hole just to test this out. But there are people that fall for these types of things, right? Rich or poor, across many industries. So, I think it's a little bit unfair for a budding industry to be sort of typecasted into rug pulls. Now, don't get me wrong. A lot of the stuff
agree,
that
by the
had,
way.
yeah. So don't get me wrong. A lot of the stuff that Spencer pointed out is bad stuff. But like, look at what happened in 2000 when all these young tech companies were going out and IPOing overnight, right? Like, so it's that spotlight I think is disproportionately placed on Web3.
Convenient.
Huh?
It's convenient
It
for
is,
a new
yeah.
asset class. Think about it, right? Like a baby's more volatile typically than a grown person. Anything in life has a life cycle. And so, yes, a new asset class is going to be more volatile, but it also has the potential to change all y'all lives and possibly make y'all billionaires too.
That's right. That's the bottom line, is to advance, especially in technology with platforms open, there's no way to progress without hitting these kinds of obstacles along the way and then figuring out whether it's regulation, whether it's content identification systems. Not to toot YouTube's horn, but YouTube has done an enormous amount of work building an extremely sophisticated content identification system that both tracks content and helps to monetize it. But verification, there's so many solutions, but I couldn't agree more with what you just said in that the progression of technology, you have to be ready and willing to deal with what is unlocked in the unexpected space and cope with it and build the right systems to account for it and to protect the users and creators.
And I will say I'm thankful that when somebody uses my song on YouTube, I actually do get paid, even if I didn't give them permission. And it's funny because like there was a moment in time where like we switched collection agencies and whatnot, and I was like, oh damn, like people are using my. I didn't know there was actually money here, right? And I think the issue that most artists have is they don't own any of their rights, so they don't ever see that. And I'm lucky that I own most of my masters and whatnot, so I get to see a little bit of that. But it's net positive from where it used to be, right? And I think it's just making as much progress as possible, leveraging this technology to do so.
Yeah, exactly. Change is hard, transitions are hard, and that's what this is all about. Well, I think we're just about at time. Thank you so much. I could ask you a bunch more things and could chat for much longer, but that's it. Is there anything else you guys want to add that we didn't hit on?
No, just thank you all for having me.
All right.
Thanks for
being here.
Thank
Thank you, guys.